of this is this is a terrible accusation clearly against Roberto Alomar that rises to the point where you may say, yeah, I don't want you working in our workplace anymore. Clearly it does, and clearly they did diligence and look through this. They passed the information.
But we don't know that. We don't know that, though. We don't know if there's been any due process. That's the problem with it. There's just this dangling kind of allegation.
Right? Like he should.
He goes, oh yeah, but he wasn't convicted. She says, well, he was in a civil case.
Or something was said about you.
They're still arguing
in the fired. Let me give you an example about baseball. Jose Canseco wrote a book. Did steroids, and that guy did steroids, and that guy. And he was mostly completely no one sued him. Everyone threatened to, but no one did because they knew he's just a whistleblower now and he's telling the truth. This is like Hunter Biden's laptop. Is it yours? I don't know. Well, you don't know what your laptop is? Usually I don't know means it is. So I don't know whether Alomar pursues this further. I know this, Alex. This will cost him. And people might listen and say, so what? He's made millions of dollars already off who he was as a player and who he's been. You make it to the Hall of Fame, you go to card signings and autograph shows and whatnot, you get a lot more money. This is going to cost him millions the rest of his life. It just is.
Yeah, and I don't know where it goes from here. I don't know if there was any agreement made and non-disclosure agreements. I have no idea where it goes from here. I just am troubled by the fact that you try to erase someone's accomplishments over alleged bad behavior, because I just simply don't think we can take his achievements away from him. And let's be honest, there are a lot of D-bags in professional sports all over the place that probably have many, many stories from back in the day that would have been okay 20 years ago, 10 years ago, but by today's standards,
douche. You
not
can
so
say
much. And I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying, I just don't think we can erase achievements, just like that, because, the league has decided on its own without kind of any real true process through a court or with evidence shown. I don't know, but that's just me.
These are millionaires.
Well, let's say this. I think I'm willing to say that the Jays can say, we don't want him representing us anymore, because when you go to Rogers Center, he'd come into the suite, he would take pictures with you. He was a goodwill ambassador for the team on and off the field. No doubt about that. If you don't want him in that employ anymore, I can understand that. But I wonder this, the name being up there, the banner being up there, what do you earn as a player? Is that just for one person, Roberto Alomar, or is that for the fans? Is that for the people that come in and say, I love watching him play? Is that for the fans that say, I really enjoyed, spending time with my parents and going to games when I was a little kid? So they have stripped that away. And I don't love Alomar's in this current climate. I don't love that part of the statement, because it seems like it's an excuse about time as opposed to the incident itself and the era we live in. But I do say this, I do wonder if the banners are coming down 10 years ago. I can tell you this, remember the case of Roberto Osuna, who was a Blue Jays reliever. He was accused, in essence, of throwing his girlfriend down a stairwell, was charged, and the Jays didn't cut him right away. They waited until trade deadline day, where they could move him to the Houston Astros. He won a World Series with those Houston Astros. A lot of the time, as you mentioned, the D-bags and the bad guys, they don't get kicked out of the league. It's like a really bad teacher. There are very few of them, but those teachers often don't get fired. They just get moved to another school and become somebody else's problem. And that I have a problem with.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. It's pretty hard to remember the Blue Jays and the World Series without remembering Roberto Alomar. So I'm not sure how they do those highlight reels now without him, because he was a very big part of that, if not the biggest part of that. And interesting spin. I guess we'll wait and see what the other side rears, and maybe she'll come forward with some actual allegation. But time will tell. Greg, appreciate your time on this.
Oh, totally, Alex. Anytime. Thanks.
That is Greg Brady, who, of course, you can tune in to bright and early Saturday mornings with the Greg Brady Show here on Global News Radio, 640 Toronto. All right, when we come back, we get your Global Talkers. We will get them in just a moment. 8 o'clock, I'm going to talk with a gold medal Olympian who's putting the warning out about COVID because he didn't know he had it until he was fighting for his life in hospital, and he's still suffering a lot of the effects. We'll talk about that at 8. Stay with us here on this Friday. I'm Alex Pearson on Point, and this is Global News Radio.
Time now for a check on the roads with a look at chopper traffic. Here's Ari Rabinovich. Eastbound 401 problems at Weston and at Avenue Road in the Express are all cleared away, but still problems in the eastbound Gardner at Spadina. We got a crash block in the right lane and the off-ramp and a delay from approaching Jameson, so try the eastbound Lakeshore instead. That'll save you some time. Also in Scarborough on the East 401 collectors at Nielsen, right lane still blocked here because of a stall, but thankfully only minor delays. Drive into Mr. Lube. Sit back with Stay in Your Car Tire Services. Mr. Lube, proudly Canadian since 1976. Same-day tire services.
This video is related to this one. Weird.
Nigga gang banging that crip shit. Niggas calling up cause of them blue shit.
I thought that's what the plant was, but I'm gonna carry around some flowers with an LED light on it. It's attached to my face mask everywhere I go.
How you doing? Bro. Come on, chill. I gotta go back to my house. For what? For what? I ain't doing nothing. Man, you been looking for me. What I do? Got the gun. It's a wrap.
I might die for this shit, nigga. All them homicides was on crip, nigga. Gang banging that crip shit. Niggas calling up cause of them blue shades. My peoples, it was right behind, and ain't no nigga pulling up in no new rave. It was cool to the gang raid. Now these tough guys just never act right. Blood can fill a whole bathtub. Let these blood brothers get baptized. Blacklisted, I'm a bad guy. Plus some dark skin, so I'm the black guy. Never see me like black ice. We still pack cannons at shack side. Niggas swear that they're a man. But the light skin brother like, really what you talking about? Niggas how you in the can. Try to kill him on the track, let the people still chuck him up. I ain't trust anybody that'll walk around. Pop kind, only reason that they popping up. Niggas strings on my shoes like crocodiles. They know they fucking with me like a crocodile. Gang. Yelling that shit that you never been a part of. I know niggas I got waiting for the start of. D-Rose and they ain't even put his guard up. Not one person goes hard for the city, got a mainstream level. Talk about the top of such product. Tell me if they ever seen a break that inside of. Not me out, not that I got a TCP relay, the nigga just.
Gangsta's Paradise, Coolio, and the truck chase scene from Terminator 2, and another odd one in related videos. So yeah, right now it's 20 after 7 in the morning in Beijing. It's about 20 after midnight in the UK. I don't know where my brain wants to go with fucking news right now, but it's all gonna be bad. It's all gonna be bad.
The product, think he's styling on you, could you see him in his product? Big gun bust from a nigga like a maga. Party next door, I need a shot in a vodka. Tell Jay Prince, I don't give a fuck, yo. Fighting for a rat with a cut though. Squinting in around in a touch flow.
This is what happens when you get up here with non-stop. Just takes a while to catch up, doesn't it?
I'm blued up, I'm crewed up. For the F43G, I'm shoed up. Any nigga that really want it, I'ma bomb it. 32 shots, 10 skeletons out the closet. You don't wanna be back down with your belly up. 4 double law niggas hopping on the heavy truck. We give bullets, but niggas don't give any bucks. Mac ain't auto, but I'll show you how to semi-buck. Type of strap, you may need to get rid of me. Really take headshots, so who's guillotine? You ain't not really banging these streets. Got heat from the west, but I'm banging the east, nigga. Crip. I rep a gang that you never been a part of. I put that on my mother, then I put that on my daughter. If you just one of my brothers, then your blacks get it shot up. I'm like Welvin, yelling out God, so you ain't gotta ask Biggie Smalls who shot him. I got a Biggie pump that'll perk when I pop up. Had to move work in the slums just to guap up. Now I hit the club, tell the bartender top up. The stocks well, so for lock, you'll get shot up. Now I hit the club, tell the bartender top up. The stocks well, so for lock, you'll get shot up.
I might die for this shit, nigga. All them homicides was on.
Ready for war. Queen Street West, only Queen Street West. You can find this video out there. A car with only in Queen Street West could a car with no engine get pulled over by the cops and still given a ticket.
And I'm from the West End. Nigga, what you saying? I'm from the West End. I'm from the West End. Yo, I'm coming straight from the West End. Move from the Jane to the West End. Watch how you talk when you walk through my hood, cause you know that my niggas be pressing. Heavy artillery weapons. Ain't really into the questions. I ain't condoning no violence. The youngins are wildin', they move kind of reckless. Got the keys, police stay patting niggas. Stay keys, a familiar face taxing niggas. Safety, didn't even wanna slap the nigga, he made me. Ain't nobody telling me nothing. I knew from a youngin' that I be the one I hit something. Now all of these rappers is bugging. You live in the birds and you act like you came up from nothing. Shout out to my niggas on the plaza. Lane to connections, Southside Gaza. When I roll my backwood, better have grabber. I never leave the house without my iPhone charger.
They're calling the club, but you can't get a hold of this girl.
Abdi Muhammad Mustafa. African man, that's my barber. Jamaican man, that's my shopper. Tell them the truth. Tell them the truth. These rappers, they lying in the booth.
Yeah, you know what?
Lying in the booth. What they got to
That's really tough to do because, you know, especially in baseball, which is so heavily based on stats and records and all that kind of stuff, it's hard to, you know.
So we got a juice. I'm from the West End. I'm from the West End.
She'll tie this back into the Army and Trudeau. Watch, she will.
I'm from the West End. I'm from the West End. Nigga, what you saying? Been strict, jungle to the Rex, we deep. I can tell a West End nigga by the way you speak. Birds chirping loud in the hood, always lose they beats. Know that shot you with bodies got dumped in the creek. Stop, freeze, boy, them ain't looking for me. The chick, I got that degree. What do you mean? If you don't know what I seen, if you ain't been on the scene, record is clean. I'm too wavy. Make you may wanna date me. I got the sauce, gravy. More than they cannot replace me. Cause I'm from the West End. Bitch, nigga, better watch that top. And find out you top to the cops. Go when it turn hot on your block. I'm from the West End. So you claim you a bad man, but girl, what a bad girl crew. Let me show you what a bad girl do. But you didn't know that I'm from the West End. I'm from the West End.
Smashing. What you saying? I'm from the knocking her unconscious in the elevator. Took a lot to get that going from Roger Goodell. However, I agree with both of you that you can't erase them from history. The truth is the truth. I'm not for that. But the key to me is, in 2014, the Blue Jays reviewed these allegations. You know, sports, I mean, are they doing a knee-jerk reaction without any reason? Maybe they learned enough, and maybe they thought, we just don't want to have them connected with our company. They have a right to do that. And if that sends a message to people who think they can behave in that way, I mean, look at what happened. It's so many times. Fame has bought people a buy. I agree with you. You don't want to open the door to false allegations. But also, it may make people think twice if they want to act in that manner and think they're going to keep their jobs. Part of history, put his name on the board. He made those accomplishments. But he also, if he's done something wrong, has to wear that part as well.
Who is this? What is
I guess we'll stay tuned and see where he takes it. If he takes it to some action, then I guess we'll find out. Otherwise, it just kind of goes into the ether for a while. Premier Ford asking for tougher border measures, warning there are just too many loopholes letting the variants in. He said if he had the power, he'd shut Pearson down. If you do fly in, you're supposed to stay at a quarantine hotel. A lot of people don't. They just kind of take the fine. But a lot of people are gaming the system by flying into places like Buffalo and then driving across.
Just walk through and asking for a few things.
He wants that kind of tightened up. He also wants international students to Ontario hold it, and he asked the feds to impose this mandatory 3-day quarantine for hotel travelers coming in. Trudeau said no to that, Rick. All of these measures, I mean, are just, it's way too late. So I'm like, oh, great that you're talking about it, but a year and a half in?
Yeah, how many times, add this to the list of, this should have been done weeks or months or even a year ago. It's a great idea. I understand where the premier is coming from because, as you mentioned, people are flying into Buffalo. They're taking a cab to the land border crossing. They're walking across the bridge, and they're back in Canada. And even, even if the federal government were to implement this, we've heard of stories, of people flying in internationally, landing in Pearson, and foregoing the quarantine at the hotel, and said, you know what, I'm just going to pay the fine. Like, forget about this. I'm fine. I've tested negative. I don't need the quarantine. I'll just pay the fine, and away we go. And I can see, you know, this similar situation is implemented with the land border crossings. They'll probably just end up paying the fine. I don't need a quarantine. I want to go back to work and earn my paycheck.
Well, that's unwise.
Yeah, I mean, the variants are here, Arlene. They're variating now. I mean, it's just, all of this stuff is great to talk about. I mean, Ford has been asking since December for these tougher measures, but again, for me, it should have been done back in January 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's face it, Premier Ford needs a distraction, so we're looking at all the motives here. He does. He's got his own criticisms to wear, but I am with you. This is an example to me, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way. Ever since this pandemic started, I would go, why don't they do this? And eventually, there's a great hue and cry, and we realize that they should have done it. Who's doing well? Look at what's happening in the Atlantic provinces. They have these variants take off. They just shut down very quickly. No nonsense. You're not coming in. You need, you know, a letter from some kind of deity to get it. You wouldn't even get in. They're just shutting things down, controlling what they can control. And I think all of us have said, why don't they plug that hole? Why don't they plug that hole? And
they won't get close enough to beat you up. They'll just shoot at you.
So, you know, barn door, meet horse, horse is gone.
Exactly. And what distraction might that be? Well, Premier Doug Ford's top staffers, apparently, according to the Golden Mail, were aware that Rod Phillips would be away from Toronto and, quote, not available in person. And that was more than a week before the former finance minister embarked on this trip to the island of St. Bart's during the pandemic. On 2 occasions, Phillips' former chief of staff informed the Premier's office that his boss would be away for weeks at a time, and suggesting that Mr. Phillips would tell the Premier directly. And Mr. Ford was asked this today. Here was his response.
First time I found out was when I talked to him, and you know, I said back then I regret not telling him to come home, which I did shortly thereafter. But you know, with Rod, he made a mistake. He apologized.
I made a significant error in judgment.
You're an idiot.
So, Rick, does this fly for you? I mean, there is every reason to believe that he didn't exactly tell the Premier the destination he was going to. There were no specifics in the documents about where
that was where it was left off 4 months ago.
Should the Premier have known more?
He knew he was leaving. He didn't realize he was flying to the Caribbean.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think it's egg on the face of both Phillips and Ford being the leader, and obviously the miscommunication or non-communication between everyone involved.
Doesn't look good either.
You know, it's just not a good look. And this is, you know, piling on to the paid sick leave, which some say isn't good enough, didn't come soon enough. You know, complaining about, you know, the vaccine rollouts and you know, all that that goes with that, with you know, what the Prime Minister is trying to achieve. You know, the back and forth butting of the heads that they've been doing.
Politics, I'm sure.
I think this is more of a piling on, because I think you know, the voting public at the end of the day is going to look at this to say, well, it's there's more smoke, there's more fire, and it's just not a good look for the Premier.
BiPAP?
It's not, but Rod Phillips did lose his cabinet job, his finance minister job, so it didn't come without penalty, Arlene.
No, he did. He paid the price, but I don't know about you, and you guys all know how government works. I wasn't buying it that the Premier didn't know. And now we find out, of course he knew that he wasn't going to be available. Well, people in the office, were they holding it back from him? I don't know. You can imagine. I mean, there's a camaraderie, and Doug Ford, you know, there's lots of criticism right now, but he does want people to like him. He loves and is loyal to his friends. You can imagine him saying, okay, if these people go away, I don't know if he knew the enormity of it. And we were talking about the plugs and stuff in our head that went, gee whiz. And I don't think they realized people are going to say, look what I'm doing over the holidays. What the heck is going on with politicians? I think it adds fuels to the fire, and it makes us go, you know, that just didn't feel right. And do they think they're different?
They do. Most of them do. Nonetheless, all right. When we come back on the other side of the break, we'll ask the Prime Minister a simple question, and you get a very ridiculous answer. And we will talk about what Global asked him this morning at the press conference. And we'll also talk about the delayed in shots between shot 1 and shot 2, and the fact that politicians are playing with the dosing of our pandemic vaccines. That next. Stay with us here. Alex Pearson on point. This is Global News Radio.
Let's face it, if you've lost your job, you have questions. But before you call an employment lawyer, go to the free pocketemploymentlawyer.ca.
Somebody better have bad news for me.
To get to the bus stop. Trippz also talked about the importance of addressing racial equity in all dimensions of public transportation. For NPR News, I'm Hannah Weingartner.
No more delays, so I'm pretty sure it's been cleaned away. We've been having some problems with our cameras
with a snowplow.
They've been out across the GTA. Depends on where you are, but it's all thanks to the winds. We also have traffic lights malfunctioning across the board as well. So if you come up to a really busy intersection, that's the reason for it. One of them is Lawrence and Birchmount. We had a crash on the eastbound Gardner at Spadina, blocking the right lane and the ramp lane to Spadina, but that's been cleared away. So these delays that were from about east of Jameson are rapidly improving. That's it. It's a decent ride across the highways, but again, these intersections with malfunctioning traffic lights are going to be in place until they get them fixed. Imagine owning an income property that's affordable, has positive cash flow, and you never have to deal with a tenant. Find out how simple it is at thesimpleinvestor.com, making the world of real estate
just gonna sell crack out of the fucking place? What do you mean?
At 7:41 with the forecast. Here's Jason Fraser.
It's a complete front. No tenants. Call us for details. It's right out in the open.
Anywhere between 40 to about 50 kilometers per hour. The rain chances will significantly dissipate as we'll see cleared skies, especially after midnight, but we could end up seeing some frost develop as well. Our overnight low tonight, 0 degrees.
It's May 1st tomorrow.
Right now,
there'll be frost on May 1st.
680 News Time, 7:33.
Just enough to kill all the shit you just planted the third time.
Which has paused the rollout of the Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine after learning the doses were partially processed at a now closed plant in Baltimore.
They spent all week telling us that they spent Monday till just now telling us they weren't from that plant. I swear to God they did.
The vaccine arrived in Canada on Wednesday. Health Canada says it has learned that a drug substance produced at the Emergent Biosolutions facility in Baltimore was used in the manufacturing
this is like Coca-Cola bottling,
we just received. Now, why
where
is that
you own the factory that makes the shit. They just let you use the recipe.
Inspection of that facility noted multiple areas of concern. So Health Canada says the Janssen vaccines will only be released for distribution once it's satisfied they meet the department's high standards for quality, safety, and efficacy. Officials add Health Canada is currently working with Janssen and the FDA to obtain all of the information it needs to complete this assessment prior to releasing the Janssen vaccine for distribution. Now, Health Minister Patty Hajdu says the government was made aware of this information today, the same day Health Canada decided to communicate it with Canadians. The Office of the Procurement Minister says as Health Canada's review of these vaccines is ongoing and it works with the supplier to obtain all of the needed information. The government awaits further information prior to their release. Bill Martino, 680 News. Happening now across the city, Toronto Hydro crews are busy trying to fix a number of outages as gusty winds continue to whip around the GTA. The largest outage at the moment is in North York. It's affecting homes from Shepherd south to Lawrence in the Bayview Avenue area. Toronto Hydro outage says that power is expected to be restored in the next several hours. Toronto police say there are also reports of a tree falling on a car near Gerrard and Victoria Park. With more on the blustery weather, here's 680's Mama Qureshi.
It's one of those days where you have to hold on to your hats and everything else because the winds are gusting. Our meteorologist, Jason Fraser, says we felt winds sustained at 55 kilometers per hour, even stronger, causing things to blow around.
Tree branches flying around the GTA, and it could end up meaning that some tree branches could end up breaking and knocking into some power lines and knocking off power.
And Marie Akins of Go Transit says the heavy winds are causing some service problems.
We've had to cancel some of our trains and get an opportunity for crews to go out and clean up the tracks.
Toronto Hydro reminding you, if you do see down power lines, stay 10 meters back and call them to take care of it. I'm Momin Qureshi.
We'll just do that.
680 News Time, 7:36. The Premier took questions from the media today, the first time since going into isolation. Here's 680's Richard Southern.
Speaking from his late mother's backyard in Etobicoke and facing the cameras for the first time in more than a week, the Premier addressed the Long-Term Care Commission.
You're saying it with no class whatsoever.
To read. I fully welcome this report. So I will not stand here and try to make excuses or pass the blame. But I will tell you
that I'm doing everything in my power and I'm sparing no expense.
The Premier also faced tough questions about new documents that showed his staff knew that Rod Phillips, the then finance minister, would be out of town during Phillips's trip to St. Bart's over Christmas.
I can tell you, no one told me that he's leaving the country.
And on why he's not listening to the science table on issues like longer sick leave and closing non-essential workplaces.
I also listened to the medical advisors, the CEOs of hospitals, and most importantly, my chief medical officer.
Ford also asked why we haven't seen him in more than a week.
I've been here and I've been on the phone all day from 7 in the morning.
Ford also says 40% of the province should be vaccinated by May. I'm Richard Southern.
And Doug Ford says if it were up to him, he would close Pearson Airport. He appealed to the federal government for tighter border controls. We get the details from 680's Alex Bloomfield.
A frustrated Premier Ford pinning the arrival of new variants on porous borders.
In the last 2 weeks, 150,000 people came through our land borders in Canada. 36,000 a month are coming through the airports.
Ford now wants the same 3-day hotel quarantine to be imposed on anyone entering by land. However, the Prime Minister insists there's a fundamental difference between land and air entry.
Anyone who comes to the U.S. land border has already been tested in the U.S. in the last 3 days. Then they have to get tested again. And everyone has to quarantine for 2 weeks and do another test on day 8.
Federal health officials add there's little evidence land crossings are leading to significant variant spread. The Trudeau government will agree to another border request from the province, a ban on arrivals of international students. I'm Alex Bloomfield. The City of Toronto has announced today they are partnering with 2 agencies to help people without an OHIP card get the COVID-19 vaccine. They'll be working with FCJ Refugee Center and Access Alliance for this service. It comes after those without OHIP cards reported hitting massive roadblocks when trying to book an appointment. But the province has clearly stated that if you don't have an OHIP card at all, you are still eligible for a vaccine. For more details, you can head to 680news.com.
Why?
In India, they're facing another day of record COVID numbers. 680's Michelle Mackey joins us live with that. Michelle.
Judy, it's the first time India has breached 400,000 new cases. The country also reporting more than 3,500 new deaths, sparking the Biden administration to take action. Starting Tuesday, May 4th, the U.S. restricting travel from India except for American citizens, lawful permanent residents, or other people with exemptions. It comes as desperation for oxygen tanks grows in New Delhi.
We're here in this long, long line. It takes all the way around the block over there. And these people have been waiting to try to get precious oxygen. It's in such short supply. Many hospitals simply don't have it.
And CNN's Clarissa Ward says when people get to the front of the line, there's no guarantee they'll even get oxygen. The Indian government says it's now deploying liquid oxygen on the country's railway system to get it to cities and towns across the country of 1.3 billion people. Reporting live, I'm Michelle.
Now, I wonder.
Gas prices
I'm the
are
type
next.
of person that wonders.
7:39.
Doug Ford says schools are safe, but it's not true. 1 in 4 Ontario schools have active COVID-19 cases. Ford didn't do what experts told him to do to keep kids safe. Now the virus is out of control and we're facing school closures again. Half measures don't work. It's time to make vaccines available to all educators and frontline workers. Schools won't
They come in half measures.
Transmission is under control. A message from the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario.
Now the 680 News gas price update. Empro predicts the price will not be changing at midnight, holding steady at $1.31.9 a liter at most GTA stations.
Not at most, it's an average. So $1.32 on the corner here. What used to be a Shell is now a Pioneer. Where they did something I like. It's they got the price of gas and the price of diesel. It's $1.27, which is 5 cents less, which is the same as that. So it would seem like it's the same owner with a new franchise agreement because it could go either way. And it's $1.15 for the diesel. They got the diesel price right on the sign. I like that. This is just selling stuff and you make it impossible to buy it from you. Why do you sell it?
Started off with a bang.
And why? What's changed?
Well, some of it is the same forces that we heard did.
Just shove it out the door. We've seen what's happened with private businesses. It's a shame that we're under a pandemic right now, but we won't all
Just I need like 2 seconds.
Specific phenomenon, they cut costs because of the pandemic in order.
They're gone. Just don't even pull it out.
America's
They're
response
gone.
to the pandemic.
We call ourselves
as usual.
Feminist
Go
government.
fuck yourself.
Yeah, you can't call yourself feminist or for no tolerance. I mean, Rick, common sense, unless you really want to be willfully blind. If someone came to you with an allegation and you're a no tolerance person, you'd say, what are we talking here? Are we talking a sexual complaint? What are we talking here? If you really truly believed in that, you would want to know right then and there, what are we talking about? You never asked that.
No, Arlene used the word shame. I'm going to lop off the E because this is a sham. This is a shameful process because the prime minister, if any politician in this party was serious about
everybody wants to be a rapper,
what needs to be getting to the bottom of, this was over weeks ago. This is a total sideshow in terms of delaying and pausing and talking, and now we're going to study this thing again and launching an investigation with Louise Arbour. Like, give me a break. This is another government and another leader who just does not want to uncover the truth or have the truth come out because it's going to make him, maybe Telford, and everybody else in the party look bad.
They're going to delay it just like they're delaying the vaccines, nonetheless. Just another day in the life of the Trudeau government. All right. Have a great night, guys. Thanks so much for sharing your time with me.
Hey, you too. Have a great weekend.
All right, that is Arlene Biden and Rick Zamprin, both in our Global News Radio family. Coming up next, it's a fun little story, kind of something you do when you're a kid. You maybe put a message in a bottle and hope someone gets it, and then you have a meeting and you make friends, whatever, but it happened, and it's connected to strangers in Alberta 30 years later. We will talk to them now. We're coming up on the other side of the break. Stay with us here. Alex Pearson on point. This is Global News Radio.
Mohawk say by the me, but Surgeon General's warning smoking causes lung cancer, heart disease, emphysema, and may complicate pregnancy. I try to say that at least once every 200 cigarettes.
Been cleared.
Because I don't want kids thinking it's cool or something. I'm smoking because I can't stop. I'm smoking because I can't fucking stop. That's how it works. And one day I'll stop because I'll just die.
They could. Will they keep doing that? Watching what shareholders think of these plans when there are big meetings next month. And of course, keeping an eye on policy. We mentioned.
Oh, it is incredibly Chinese. Thank you. That's beautiful. But
the notion of buying American, it's
very
different than it would have been in the 1950s, where everything would have been manufactured in the United States. And I'm not sure anybody could, with the example of a car, the parts are made all over the place. So buying anything that's purely made in one country or another, something that's technologically complicated, I don't think that's a reality in 2021.
And Paul, Biden said he told President Xi Jinping that the U.S. welcomed the competition and is not looking for conflict. But when we look at Biden's China policy and its Indo-Pacific strategy, actually, at least from China's perspective, he is taking a more and more confrontational approach. How do you think he's going to make sure that does not lead to a conflict?
Oh, that's a good question, and that's a hard one to answer. Clearly, Biden is continuing along with the Trump policies in the last year of Trump's administration in regards to China. It will evolve. Biden is reaching out to more of the countries that are neighbors to China. Reaching out to them, trying to redevelop relationships with them, not doing the go it alone that Trump took. But clearly Biden
your cell phone kept going off while you were on a radio interview
with the confrontational approach.
It's become fashionable for everybody's instant messenger to go off while they're
in the United States. Now, the question, how do you make sure this won't lead to conflict? That's the whole nother thing. And that's a question that can be asked of the Chinese leadership as well as the American leadership. How do you de-escalate areas of potential conflict. And what you think about, of course, is you think about the South China Sea, you think about relationships with Taiwan. How do you manage those? And you need skilled diplomatic hands. You need people who say there's always alternatives to war, there's always alternatives to military conflict, to be there to manage those things.
People need to have guns.
But that still doesn't guarantee an accident doesn't happen that could have bad consequences. And I go back in my mind to the early days of the George W. Bush administration, when an American plane was shot down, I believe, or crashed off the coast.
Enjoy incredible savings. This opportunity is limited, so book now. Chorus, let us help you reconnect to customers. And now is the perfect time with our Back to Business exclusive.
I'm going to advertise my crack houses. Right, Saturday, so that will not be
both sides to de-escalate that conflict.
Got to be world today.
And I think that is going to be the model that we're going to need moving forward.
I can pull the podcast on this one easy.
There's going to be issues where we're going to rub up against China. China's going to rub up against us, especially in the South China Sea, especially as China's military and economy continues to grow.
See, the middle word is the middle name is China.
Make sure that they don't go beyond into conflict, and that's going to take seasoned hands who say we're going to de-escalate.
But when we look at those issues, be it the South China Sea issue or the Taiwan issue, it's interesting that these are all China-related issues, or some of them are China's domestic issues.
They're internal
None of them are U.S.-related issues. So Raymond, I wonder how would you understand what Biden says that the U.S. welcomed the competition but is not looking for conflict?
I'll pull this podcast later somehow.
Well, so the United States sees itself, as I think China does, as a global leader in a variety of ways.
That's the number, and it was very well laid out with the front door, the back door. And Michelle decided to call and leave a message and then put it out on social media.
Hey, you can't leave that tent. That's my tent.
24 hours, she got a phone call from Daryl Ann Steffen and said, I may have put a letter in a bottle that you found. Well, they both join me now. Michelle Schwingler of Leduc, Alberta, and Daryl Ann Steffen, now living in Calgary. Good to have.
That's hardly what I
of other countries.
You got body counts first.
And that context is super important because it provides some sort of cultural context for how people view whatever conflict, whatever surprises, whatever actions that may occur, and that we're not relying on sort of stale or problematic analogies to try to figure out what to do with another major power. I think that's important. I think Biden's diplomatic corps sees itself as taking a very different tact with many countries around the world. When Biden says that the United States is back and back to stay, is that those relations on issues that,
but it's for some reason acceptable, so they'll tell them not to correct
trade or what countries are doing in different parts of an ocean. When it goes to climate and the environment, these are things that China and the United States have to work on together. They have to work on with India or have to work on with Africa together. I think a lot of people at different levels of the government understand that, or corporations understand that, and that's a good thing.
So Laura, when Biden says that America is back, diplomacy is back, do you think his foreign policy is in accordance with that?
I think it's too soon to tell. I think he's certainly trying to strike a tone that really values multilateralism, the rejoining of the World Health Organization and the Paris Climate Accord. I think he is dramatically changed the language around the United States being a leader on global human rights, on issues like LGBT equality, and the recent declaration of the Armenian genocide in Turkey in 1915. Those are policies that are antithetical to what the Trump administration was articulating. But how that's going to translate into,
that man could not articulate what's the problem.
Relations with between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and a more confrontational posture toward Russia. I mean, we're only beginning to see the edges of how those policies might morph over the course of his presidency.
So Paul, how do you think Biden is going to make sure that America is not just back, but is back here to stay? How is he going to guarantee the continuity of his policies, given how divided the country is?
I think a key thing for Biden is going to be the personnel that he puts in place, and then with the personnel in various government agencies, then the policies that will be implemented to try to ensure that there is continuity there. In other words, I think he's taking and trying to project the message that the last 4 years were an aberration, and that there is a normal way for the United States to conduct policy. And so he is choosing people to populate political positions inside the administration who've had experience before in the Obama administration, some going back previously. He's also building.
Was when I put the bottle in the lake, and he thought it was really interesting and exciting, and he's very.
Tiffany in an orange jumpsuit, but you know what? That was a very contained, like, except for the graffiti removal guy that we locked down the street for her own safety.
Oh, really?
So we weren't letting like pedestrians on that street. We like kind of trapped that, unbeknownst to him.
You take your ass off. You better take off. You better run. Man, I'm gonna get my car and I'm gonna go to Mexico and I'm gonna just start all over, man. Get those clothes off and get out of here. Can I borrow your vest? I can't give you my vest. You my lookout. I never forget a face. Good. Thank you for helping me escape.
Hidden camera means hidden camera means hidden crew. So we kind of like isolated that guy without his knowledge, so that Tiffany would be safe in the orange jumpsuit.
I love that guy.
Yeah,
he was a freaking good sport.
Oh my God, he's amazing.
On top of like the team doing these pranks being black and brown, I noticed a lot of the like civilians and bystanders involved on the sidelines and wrapped up in these pranks. They're also people of color.
Yeah.
Was that intentional?
Not directly intentional. A lot of we've shown the majority of the movie in Atlanta, and around
that
Georgia.
Explains a lot.
So there's just a lot of black people in Atlanta, but also some black cast in compromised situations. Our characters are always in compromised situations, and it was just nice seeing black people help black people out. It was like the people we're bringing were like even more invested because me and Rel are in peril in so many situations. And also like black people have better reactions. Like black people are so emphatic and like a lot of people in the movie like wear their heart on their sleeve in the way like they don't hide their feelings. Like some like if you prank like a white businessman, they just kind of like, well, that's weird. I'm just gonna walk away. You know what I mean? Versus the women.
Whereas like the black woman starts praying for you.
Yeah,
literally.
Or the woman in the chicken wing shop, J.R. Crickets. That's like when Tiffany comes in.
Short-haired woman.
Yeah, Jackie. What's her name?
Amazing.
Hey, did you see these dudes? They come up in here. Here?
Y'all about to call you.
Did anybody here see you fucking?
You got in the car with that.
Hey, she's like, I was about to call you, girl. When Tiffany came back. She's like, I went to school with the police. I'm in security. I don't forget a face. Like, she's just so charismatic. Like, if she was a stuffy white businessman who's like, works for a hedge fund, I don't think we would have gotten that same.
Yeah. And like, there's also when you're getting those kind of reactions from people of color, it's also revealing something that I never saw a lot of in Punk'd or Jackass or even Borat. And lots of reviewers have spoken about this in the film Bad Trip. There's a certain humanity that's revealed in these people that are being pranked.
Yeah.
They are usually nice, they're usually kind, and they're trying to help in spite of them being totally discombobulated by the prank.
Totally. You know what? When we first showed the movie to Sacha Baron Cohen, he had the best, like, succinct, astute review. And he turned to me and he goes, you know, my movies are about exposing the corruption and hypocrisy of, like, wealthy white oligarchs. He goes, your movie is about showing the humanity and the beauty and the good Samaritan nature of Black people and working class people. And, like, he goes, I really hope your movie, like, unites the working class, because we're pitted against each other so often through class and race that your movie shows the humanity of the proletariat. And I was like, wow, like right at the end of the movie, like that was the first thing out of his mouth.
You can see Eric Andre's Bad Trip on Netflix right now. Trust me.
Hey, we're on YouTube. We ain't paying for nothing. Fuck you, GST too. Fuck that.
That was NPR's Sam Sanders having a lot of fun talking with comedian Eric Andre. You can hear more of their chat on Sam's podcast. It's called It's Been a Minute from NPR.
But that's April in the books. The TSX was up 20.
Order 2 more reports.
Tomorrow on Weekend Edition, we meet a rate-off.
Boat to go snorkeling in my private cove. That was one Friday's lot of.
Oh, damn.
Jackpot is an estimated $15 million. Why dream to the min when you can dream to the max?
Why is it hard to get silver these days? Because savvy investors recognize the value of.
I'm just waiting for the videos to come out of people drinking too much, eating the wrong thing, and puking with their mask on. This way, the projectile vomit with the mask on. That's just
silver, whether it's direct.
Now you are too. Now you're waiting for it too.
FSA, call 1.
You'll see. It'll be. You gotta look for it in their eyes, because you won't see their mouth because of the mask. You gotta pull that phone out fast.
We have a full crowd today.
Really, Dad?
We're expecting a pretty.
You gotta just grab somebody and say, "Hey, record that for TikTok right now."
Stop.
The 2021 Ford Explorer, with available seating for up to 7 and standard intelligent.
I'm thinking like German beer, like way too much German beer and potato salad, and getting up too quick to try to walk home thinking you're okay with the mask on. You get out the door, put the mask on, and then it hits them. There's got to be a security camera right outside the bar so they'll catch that moment. There has to be somewhere in Skynet's coverage area.
At pizzaville.ca or on your Pizzaville app.
Understand the story. Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
Yeah, I think on Facebook I'm going to change where it says religion to Skynet just to cover me, just in case.
Those problems at Spadina have long since cleared away. It's finally moving well on the eastbound Gardner into the downtown core as well as westbound. We're getting reports now of some problems on the northbound 427 just past the Gardner.
We got Canadians in friggin' MASH hospitals, like MASH TVs, like 4077.
If the deputies made a mistake or they broke any laws or violated any of our policies, they will be held accountable.
The sheriff whose deputies shot and killed Andrew Brown Jr. says he supports his officers and he wants transparency.
It's Friday, April 30th, and this is All Things Considered from NPR News.
Yeah, but it's too happy.
I'm Mary Louise
Sheriff's deputies are shot and killed some black
guy. This hour, families leaving Honduras to head to the southern border into the U.S.
Wait, what? Southern? They're heading north to the south. They're heading to the north. For Honduras, it's for Mexico, it's the north.
Good evening from the Global News Desk. I'm Darren Boland. It's another bump in the road for Canada's vaccine rollout. Health Canada tonight says it is suspending the distribution of some 300,000 doses of the single that arrived just yesterday. Officials say it was revealed the vaccine was produced in the Baltimore-based facility where some 15 million doses were ruined a few days ago. Health Canada says the vaccine will only be distributed to provinces and territories once it meets the high standards for quality, safety, and efficacy. A long-awaited report on the state of long-term care in the province has now been released. In long-term care says problems that arose during the first wave of the pandemic, long-standing issues in long-term care have been addressed well before the virus took hold. Global's Dave Woodard with more on the 322-page document. A lack of pandemic preparedness and the poor state of the long-term care sector were apparent for many years to policymakers and for anyone who wished to see. That's how the report on the Long-Term Care Commission starts out, pointing to things like a lack of PPE, outdated and not replaced, and staff stretched thin before the pandemic had even started. The report did say that after SARS in 2003, there were plans put into place and were followed for a time, but soon the money involved in pandemic preparedness gave way to other priorities of successive governments. The report said that the second wave of the pandemic was far worse than the first, and while it's still sorting out exactly what happened, the Commission says insufficient staff and aging home infrastructure issues were too deeply ingrained to overcome. Dave Woodard at Global News. Well, meantime, the province has asked the federal government to impose a mandatory 3-day quarantine in hotels for travelers entering Canada at land crossings, but it doesn't appear Ottawa is ready to comply.
The rules already exist for travelers who come to Canada by plane, but Premier Ford wants the feds to bring in mandatory hotel quarantines at land borders too.
As long as you can fly to Buffalo, take a taxi or limo to the U.S. border, and walk across to Canada to avoid having the quarantine in a hotel, as long as these massive loopholes exist, we're not safe from these new variants.
The Prime Minister says there are already tight controls at land borders, reminding everyone today that anyone who comes through has already been tested in the U.S.
Then they have to get tested again, and everyone has to quarantine.
Extended care nursing home fire in 1980, Mississauga. There was a coroner's inquest because 30 people died. 30. They got an inquest. The people that ate 3,700 and change or something, and they're getting a commission. So after the coroner's inquest, there was a review of the findings of the inquest, so to speak. I don't know all the right words off the top of my head. And the review was conducted by a committee who wrote a report on the review, which is authored by the chairperson of the committee, which is my grandfather, Adrian Vanton Kirkhope. This is an Ontario government publication. And I think it's like 1984 or 85 or so. That part is not even that important. 82 or something. It would be just right after. So they said, for example, old people can't get up and run out of a nursing home that's on fire. So all the fire escapes and shit, nothing. You need sprinklers and fire cells and shit. For example, I'm paraphrasing and condensing, but that's some of the shit that's in there. I've not seen a complete copy of it, but since it's an Ontario government publication, I guarantee it's somewhere, even if it's microfiche.
On COVID, but on most conspiracy theories. And if you look across the board, also conservative voters in the last federal election are nearly twice as likely as liberal and NDP voters to believe in COVID conspiracy theories.
Well, Insights West found COVID hoaxes are rivaling traditional conspiracy theories, like a cure for cancer has been found but not released, and humans have been cloned. Massa believes it's because of social media and what happened in the U.S. the last 4 years. And the Toronto Blue Jays tonight are cutting ties with Hall of Fame second baseman Roberto Alomar. The decision comes after Alomar was fired as a consultant by Major League Baseball and placed on the league's ineligibility list after an investigation into an allegation of sexual misconduct. Alomar was relieved of his position as a special assistant with the Blue Jays, and the team said his name will be removed from its level of excellence, and a banner commemorating his retired number 12 will be removed from the Rogers Center rafters. In a tweet, the two-time World Series champion says he is disappointed, surprised, and upset, and hopes to be able to address the accusations directly. The GTA's top stories on demand. Set your Alexa flash briefing to play 640 Toronto. In sports, Teoscar Hernandez is back in the Blue Jays lineup after missing 3 weeks due to a positive COVID-19 test. The outfielder was placed on the injured list on April 9th and started experiencing symptoms a few days later. And Hernandez is in right field and heading fourth tonight as Toronto takes on the Atlanta Braves.
I thought they had a COVID list.
At 2. Looking now at your regional forecast from the Global News Weather Center. Strong winds and freezing. Environment Canada to issue a special weather statement and a frost advisory. The mercury tonight will drop to the freezing mark, and cloudy conditions as well as gusts near 80 kilometers an hour are expected to subside overnight. I'm Darren Boland, and this is Global News.
This is On Point with Alex Pearson on Global News Radio.
All right, great to have you on this Friday night. We know this third wave that the variants are now driving is hitting younger people harder and much faster. I mean, it used to take up to 2 weeks for the virus to climax into an ICU admission, but now doctors say it's happening in less than 7 days. And what the trends are showing is that almost as many under the age of 50 have died in the first 48 days of this third wave than those who died in the entire second wave that ran from September to February. And of course, this virus, as we're learning, spares no one. I mean, it used to really be a threat to those with underlying issues, but now it's so vicious. It's ravaging the healthy, the fit, and the young. And that includes our next guest, 31-year-old Alex Kopax, who's a Canadian gold medal Olympic brakeman in men's bobsled who spent 4 days in hospital fighting for his life. And he joins us now. Good to have you, Alex.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
So you don't know how you got this. It was possibly through travel in the Calgary area. But again, when did you know you were getting really sick?
It wasn't until probably the Wednesday of the return. So I came back on the 12th, and then within like 2 days, that Wednesday afternoon to evening, I started having extremely high fever, and basically the feverish period didn't stop for a good 6 days straight. I immediately pushed to book a COVID test, but at that point you just know that you're just not well. So
yeah. And how bad did it get for you? I mean, you're young, you're 31, and obviously the aftermath.
Sorry, guys.
No apology needed.
It was yeah, part of the effect. It's awful. I mean, I'd hate to relive a lot of the stuff in the hospital, but you know, it got to a space where the first time I admitted myself, I did it because I just couldn't keep fighting it. There was just nothing to fight with. No medications were taking the edge off of the fever, the pain, the chills. Nothing would stop the cough. And then you get to a space where you have actually no clue how much damage is happening to your lungs, and then you start running out of oxygen, but you don't know it. You just think you're tired.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
I mean, you're young. You're in the prime of your life. You're obviously a highly trained athlete, and I'm always surprised. And I've heard of a few athletes who've gotten this, and they just, even the most conditioned of people seem to get hit really hard. Explain to me then how, what it was like to fight. Were you intubated at any point?
No, but I was heading that way. The only thing that stopped me was an experimental drug called tocilizumab, which they administered to shut down my immune system. Because this thing referred to as a cytokine storm was building, and then that surplus inflammation would shut my lungs down. And I guess to give context,
airborne
me versus someone else, there's two athletes that I trained privately, and they got it from me within those first 2 days prior to my really bad sickness. They barely had any symptoms. So there you have three, world-class, healthy people, and according to this small little anecdote, 33% were sent to the hospital and almost paid for it. So I don't understand it, and I don't think we'll understand it for a couple more years to get enough metadata to figure out the genetic linking between some of these random symptoms and not.
And how close do you think you came? I mean, you were at the point where you were preparing to say goodbye, but did you really believe that this was going to threaten your life, that it could be end of life for you?
Absolutely. And I did say goodbye to a lot of people. You can't, I imagine, and I say this with very, 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 very much respect to people that have survived or have had family members that passed from something like cancer, but you can't do anything but wait.
Right.
And this thing was deteriorating very quickly for me, and every day was just like another surprise of how much worse it's going to get. Well, let's find out. And then the lungs deteriorating further and further, and the docs are saying, well, we have a chance. It might not work, but you might as well try it. There's some encouraging results, it's new. How new? 3 months new. So of course, it's a scary thought that, I mean, it's not like I was just turning the corner and getting better. So I mean, prepare for the worst, I suppose. I mean, it's a hard thing to face, but I guess the reason a lot of old Stoics use the term memento mori is for a reason, because you don't know when your last day might be. And I don't know, I went through all these thoughts of like, did I do enough in my life? Did I do enough to impact people? And I don't mean achievements wise, because sport may as well throw that on the side. That can be a very selfish endeavor. But when my friends pushed me to do the first CBC interview, I figured at the very least maybe a warning might save some people's lives and I do something positive.
Right. And I mean, it's obvious that it's had an effect on you, not just emotionally, psychologically, but physically. I mean, you're a really fit person. I mean, you won a gold medal in Pyongyang. And so the after effects, what are you dealing with now, other than obviously, you can hear it, the strain in your breathing, the coughing. I mean, how long is this recovery going to be for you?
It's an unknown. And with every person, I'm sure it'll be slightly different. Still cough up a little bit of blood here and there. And, my lungs are just going to take their time. I suppose at this point it might be akin to recovery from tuberculosis or like pneumonia. I might have permanent scarring, and I also might not. But there's definitely no,
it's like that.
5-day rule and it'll be okay. I have oxygen at home that's just kind of running constantly. It's a pretty cool unit that just filters the air and
concentrates it.
I'm allowed to leave my house quarantine-wise, and I plan on trying to take short walks, just maybe down the street to a little river lookout with my pup. But it takes a lot of energy out of me just going down the stairs. So
it's so crazy to think that someone of your caliber of athleticism, like even a conversation sounds like it's a lot of work for you. The shortness of breath and the exhaustion. It's a bit of an uphill climb.
So the last video, somebody asked me, I said I was smoking a quarter ounce a day, 7 grams a day when I was sick last year.
This isn't about spreading some kind of pro-pharma propaganda. This is just the reality.
2 grams in, chaos.
You have no clue what kind of bad dice roll you're going to get when you get a disease like this that we can't even truly predict. And I don't know.
Patient X minus
very clever in nature about it, because it's not really. Maybe it's not in our faces the way it is in some countries, if that makes any sense. We don't have that. We don't have the feeling that the dangerous really is, unless there's people that have family members that have died from it. They're scared of it, and rightly so.
It's airborne AIDS.
How many stories does everyone say? Like, I knew a guy had it once, 2 days, and he was fine. Well, it's not like this a big deal at all.
That's not.
Are you willing to bet your life that you'll also only have 2 days? Yeah, that's the part that's such a scary concept, that we don't respect the danger. We don't respect how hot the element is on the stove.
And do you still have hopes to do more bobsledding? I mean, is that kind of stuff done for you?
My body's finished. Even prior to this disease, my body's finished. I look forward to maybe passing on my knowledge to some athletes down the road, but I came, I saw, I conquered, started a company, and I'm just going to try to keep looking ahead to the next adventure.
Yeah, I have to think that not just winning gold is a life-changing experience, but then
it's a straight downhill run.
Life kind of
You're the only guy
down at such a young age. That is also a really big life-altering experience.
Yeah, it's until a person goes through it, it's really hard to describe. I mean, anyhow, it wasn't pleasant.
I picked that up, but I'm so glad you talked to us. I appreciate you talking to us, because we are in Toronto in the hotbed of this right now. We're cresting the third wave, and I think people think we're out of the woods, and we're not. But your story certainly speaks volumes. So I appreciate you chatting with us, and I wish you the very best in your recovery.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That is Alex Kopax, who, in the prime of his life, clearly a prime athlete, and this disease, this virus, spares nobody. So let that be the warning. We'll talk about this and many other of the day's headlines, and we'll do that next in our Counterpoint round 1, and we'll do that after this here on Point on Global News Radio.
Time now for a check on the roads with a look at chopper traffic. Here's Ari Rabinovich.
It's QEW at the ramp to the north 427. We briefly had some delays here because of some moving maintenance crews in the left lane, which are now gone, and all the delays are gone too. On the Gardner, problems eastbound at Spadina are clear, moving well through here. And also on the East 401, we still do have a collector problem at Nielsen. A right lane is blocked with a stall, but almost no delay. Just take caution through the area. And then on the in-town route, a closure earlier at Church and Jane, where we had some down hydro wires, and that's on Jane south of the 400. And it's all cleared away now, and all lanes are reopened. Also northbound Coxwell reopened past Gerard after that's cleared away. Driving to Mr. Lube, sit back with Stay in Your Car Tire Services. Mr. Lube, proudly same-day tire services at Mr. Lube. I'm 640 Toronto,
what
chopper
are you
traffic.
Stopping me from doing exactly? You're guessing at what I'm trying to do next.
When the sun is rising and the birds are chirping, there's no better way to start the day than a good old Jeff.
So this is what happens when you're not an evil person. You get the worst of people that stalk you, harass you on the internet, however. But the thing is, every minute, an hour, and day they spend harassing me, they're not doing this to little kids. So yeah, you leave your kid in front of the smart TV with the camera, this idiot's trying to fucking harass them and whatever. Yeah, all of a sudden everything's going back to normal. Huh? Can you make up your mind what script it is you're going to run? Because I know you can only pick one at a time. That's funny. You're not a hacker. You're running a script you found on the dark web. It's nothing. Oh dear. Yes, up and down, up and down. You're so creative. Ugh. So for somebody who stalks us so much, you'd realize there's not enough time for me to roll the joint and do anything with them. I'm literally doing nothing. The more times you run that script, the less times it works later. We pretty much proved that this last year or so.
Place and Parks and Recreation. In response to Mayor Chisenhall's decision to move Big Larry. I'm sorry, what?
This is the 5th time someone's crashed into that statue. It's a public safety issue.
I'm gonna get this town on my side. Yeah, there's something happening in that town. So much drama.
That is broken. Oh, wow. Fuck. System UI has stopped. Bullshit. Get the fuck out of here. Yes, up and down. We see it. Go the fuck away and kill yourself, Chomo.
The friends, the guiding lights, the real-life superheroes who always know when to push and when to let go and let you be. So don't let this Mother's Day go by without showing Mom the heartfelt love and appreciation you feel by giving her a pair of white gold Tears of Joy earrings from Spence for $199. As priceless as Mom is, she's more than worth it. Spence Diamonds. Find us in Vaughan, Scarborough, and Mississauga.
Menu, it moves.
About 7 degrees Celsius, your winter tires wear faster and get noisy on the warm, dry surface.
Still, that might be
but with
a problem.
quick change from winter to Toyota recommended all-season tires,
idiot is still coming at me like I'm
you'll
free.
extend the life of your winter tires and enjoy a quieter ride on your all-season tires, which are designed for warmer temperatures. Contact your nearest Ontario Toyota dealer today and get the right tires at the right price, thanks to our price comes to tires. Details make the difference. Terms and conditions apply.
At True Tone Electronics, we know this has been a difficult time for everyone. Your safety is our #1 priority. Our showroom is currently closed, but our professional staff are available.
Yeah, keep showing me edited pictures of my eyes shut. That's good.
Hey, 20 here on the very chilly Friday. Sickle.ca. We've got our Friday regulars, Anthony Fury, Toronto Sun Post Media.
System UI isn't responding.
And Bob
no one's
Richardson,
interacting
Senior
with it but
Counsel
you.
over at
You're mad.
National Public Relations. Hello, gentlemen.
Hey, everyone.
Good evening.
Oh, so we did figure
The Conservative Party last week people to be changing, get rid of the loopholes, you know. So, and I don't know how this went in there, but he apparently wanted the arrival of international students to be halted. And he wants the federal government to impose mandatory 3-day quarantines in hotels for whoever enters Canada at land crossings. And Trudeau said no to this part of it, Bob. I just don't understand why we're talking about these things still, what, like 15 months in?
Oh, number one, I agree with Trudeau on the land one. There's a whole variety of tests that you have to take before you go across the border. Like you, I know a variety of people who have done that. But let's put this into context. This entire announcement from him was stunt politics. It comes from his political advisor. It does not come from his science table. This clown car operation ought to be focused on testing, tracing, long-term care, vaccinating people after the Marx brothers ran the vaccination rollout, and get back to his job. To say nothing of the fact that 60 to 70% of the spread goes on in manufacturing, food processing, distribution, and construction, all things that he has control over. So how about you leave your mom's home and go do your job and stop playing stunt politics?
Yeah, Anthony, the frustrating thing, I think, for a lot of people, I mean, I do think they should have stricter border controls, but that, to me, was something you do a long, long time ago. But to Bob's point, the things that we could be doing, like tracing, like that has not been done at the municipal level in Toronto, Hamilton, not for months. I mean, the things that we need to do, we aren't even bothering to do. And I don't know why everyone's so complacent about it.
Oh, woe is me, Alex. You're not even going to give me a participation medal for this panel because I'm just going to agree with Bob, unfortunately. He's completely right on all of this. I mean, look, I'm so frustrated because I'm an advocate of, look, 15 months into this, we have to learn our lessons. We have learned a lot. Who are the high-risk individuals? Where are the places that are actually causing spread? Yeah, we should have closed the borders maybe 15 months ago. We've also learned we're not New Zealand. We're not Taiwan. It's not that easy. People are going to be coming back and forth for many reasons. Truck drivers, obviously snowbirds have the right to return. There's a lot going on, and I do think it's a bit of a political stunt. In fact, both Doug Ford and Justin Trudeau are equally guilty of just trying to score points against each other with a whole lot of announcements that really don't have a lot to do with getting us out of this mess. So it is frustrating.
Yeah, I thought at least today maybe we'd get an announcement about opening some things up. I mean, my husband was bugging me all morning long saying our golf course is opening. I mean, it was just, but we got nothing of that. I mean, the things that they should be doing, they don't do. And I really, the big takeaway for me today was that we're heading into a fourth wave driven by variants, and it's going to be, the vaccines are going to be immune to it.
Look, let's compare the 60 to 70%, and that would go a long way to putting this problem away. And I'm going to agree with Anthony too.
70 before, I would say 75 to 80 in BC or Alberta. They're all just making up a number.
This week to announce that 9 people from the Atlantic were coming up to help. It's terrific. We're coming up to help, and that's great. It's 9 people in a province of 15 million people. Let's put it into perspective here. And we need to cool all these press conferences and actually get down to work and do the things that we need to do to get this over with.
Well, the press conferences can be a lot more useful than they are.
Premier Doug Ford's top staffers apparently were aware that Rod Phillips would be away from Toronto and, quote, not available in person more than a week before the former finance minister embarked on his trip to the island of St. Bart's during the pandemic. These documents were, obtained by the Liberals who handed them over to the Globe and Mail, and Phillips' former chief of staff informed the Premier's office that his boss would be away for weeks at a time and that Mr. Phillips would tell the Premier directly. And so the Premier, who had denied that he knew anything, was asked a question like, what did you know? Like, what do you say about this? And this is what he said.
First time I found out was when I talked to him. And, I said back then, I regret not telling him to come home, which I did shortly thereafter. But, with Rod, he made a mistake. He apologized.
So, Anthony, I don't get too excited about the story because Rod Phillips, who was a very good finance minister, did pay a price for that. And it is quite feasible that no one told him exactly where he's going. But does this move the needle either way for you?
The largest self-sovereign
I don't have a problem with people traveling during the pandemic, unlike other folks, because if you follow the precautions, it can be done quite safely. I do have a problem with politicians who are now obsessed with mobility data, saying we don't even want you leaving your home, even if it's to go and play basketball, and they're the ones doing this. And I also got to say, this
and releasing fake tweets with pictures in their house when they're not in their house.
I just don't know if we want the finance minister of Ontario going on a 5-week vacation out of country, like, I don't know, even when there's not a pandemic going on. I mean, it's just a really long time.
It really is. I don't do anything to go away anywhere at this point for 5 weeks, Paul. But, there were a lot of rumors in the last couple of weeks that Rod Phillips would be making his way back into cabinet. Does that appear to be happening to you?
I think it would be a wise move by them. I thought he was a very good performer. Look, he made a mistake. He owned up to it. He's been the consummate professional since then. He dusted himself off. And he went back to work. So, I think he's shown himself to be, I think a good public servant. And based on his previous 20 years before that, I would argue that he's done a pretty good job all around in terms of being a community volunteer and in public service. So I hope he gets another shot at it. It's a little tough to believe that nobody in the Premier's office knew that he was going to be away for 5 weeks. Or that the Premier didn't know that his finance minister was going to be away for 5 weeks. That would be the first time in the history of Ontario if that happened, because usually premiers and finance ministers pretty much talk on a daily basis.
Yeah, well, we'll see where that takes us. Meanwhile, researchers in Britain have found that one dose of Pfizer does not offer enough protection against these new variants of COVID-19, and public health officials are saying you got to be vigilant about making sure everyone gets their second injection. And when you read a Scottish report, the delayed second shots are leaving people unprotected, less protected after 5 weeks. So one dose will protect you against hospitalization, with effectiveness peaking at the 5-week period at 84%, but then it drops week by week to 61%, 58%.
How long is that?
And then the trends suggest it just keeps going down, Anthony. I mean, look, I've just gotten my first shot yesterday, and now I'm not in the fetal position anymore. I don't know when I'm going to get my second shot, but we are starting to get data suggesting delaying shots.
What about all the people that go no fucking way after the
and
first?
Public health officials, they have said when asked, well, would you have made it 4 months long between doses if there had been more supply? And they almost laughed, say, of course not. No, we would have completely followed the rules. So it is a supply issue with all of this. I do think there's a big problem. This is a fast-moving scenario, ever-changing. These vaccines are very new. They're still actually in the final phase of their clinical trials. And when we have these very rigid perspectives and political policies and so forth for something that's actually ever-changing and can flip around as we learn more information, that's what kind of gets us into a pickle. So I'm not surprised we have to adjust our expectations.
Bob, I think, though, if they're going to delay the shots, I think a lot of people are getting lulled into this sense that they got the shot, they're vaccinated, protected, when there should be some messaging out there from someone in health saying, look, you might have gotten your one shot, but you got to remember, we're still in a pandemic and you're not that protected. It's just one shot. And we're not hearing any of that.
I didn't believe you.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that's an important message that's lacking right now. I know I had mine almost a month ago. And you kind of almost forget about things now. So I think I need to be reminded, and I'm sure hundreds of thousands of others do too as well. I think the data on this is a bit of a moving target. There was an AstraZeneca study out of Britain that showed that things were fine well beyond 2 months with a very large sample size. In a recent study, up to 12 weeks. I think 4 months is a very long period of time, and I think we probably have sufficient vaccines coming in that it won't be that length of time, but that should be the real outlying date, and hopefully it'll be done much quicker.
No kidding. Sadly, Johnson & Johnson has been put on hold, as we learned late today. All right, let me pause it there, and then we'll talk a little bit about whether or not you think a charge of manslaughter would hold up if you have a party and people get COVID at that. That was an interesting case. And what the Prime Minister said today about the Me Too allegations against Jonathan Vance, and we'll see if they watch with you. Stay tuned here. We'll get around to the second there on Counterpoint. After this here on Point of
Is only partially blocked. MTO has that complete right lane closed, but not a lot of traffic traveling through here, so it's not causing any issues. The big issue is on city streets. Watch out. There's too many to count. We've got down wires sprinkled across the GTA, lots of power outages as well, so intersections are going to be dark as the sun is gone and darkness falls. Traffic lights malfunctioning across the board as well. One intersection is Bloomington and Woodbine, so watch out through there. Looking for the latest Jay's Buzz? Join Arden and Ben on the At the Letters podcast presented by Miller Lite. Visit sportsnet.ca. Next report's at 8:41 with the forecast. Here's Jason Fraser.
So I already know we're going to lose power here sometime after 9 o'clock. And it says between 9 and 3 a.m. I don't know what major electrical work they could possibly be doing. I don't have a hope in Ellen stopping them. My issue is just that they put the notice up today and they're doing the work between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. Why the fuck would you do that? But I'm exceptionally pragmatic. The generator don't work correctly right now anyway. And look at all the places having power outages right now. So maybe they fix all that shit. And the next time we have a power outage, our power won't go up because it used to work. There's not even a hiccup in the power supply.
And Drug Administration's recent inspection of the Emergent Biosolutions facility in Baltimore noted multiple areas of concern, and it has learned that a drug substance produced at the site with
hazard analysis and critical control points.
About 300,000 doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine that arrived in Canada on Wednesday. Officials say the Janssen vaccines will only be released for distribution once Health Canada is satisfied that they meet the department's high standards for quality, safety, and efficacy. They remain confident that the 1.5 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine imported into Canada from this facility meet quality specifications. Now, the Office of the Procurement Minister says
they said that when they found the problem
is ongoing, and it works with the supplier
this is good, and the government said no, it's not.
The needed information. The government awaits
we're still in disagreement over this
prior to their release. Phil Martino, 680 News. Now, the Baltimore company that had to dump millions of Johnson & Johnson vaccine doses has a history of problems.
In 2012, federal tax dollars helped Emergent Biosolutions build a facility in Baltimore to prepare for an urgent health crisis like a pandemic. Since then, repeated FDA inspections have found a pattern of problems. Documents obtained by ABC News include reports of leaks, mold, peeling paint, and inadequate training. And after all that, the company last year given $628 million Operation Warp Speed dollars. In early April, it was learned of cross-contamination.
Sounds like the money they keep giving the owners of this fucking place.
Up to 15 million doses worth of vaccine ingredients for the Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca vaccines. Dave Packer, ABC News.
680 News Time, 8:34. With breaking news from the Ontario Long-Term Care COVID-19 Commission, which has released a 322-page report today, saying the province's critical decisions came too late and that the government's emergency response system proved inadequate to protect staff and residents in long-term care homes from the virus. The independent report looked into how and why COVID-19 spread across long-term care homes in Ontario. The commission says the province ignored warnings when the pandemic hit, that it didn't act quickly or decisively enough. The document goes on to say that the Ford government had no plan to protect residents in long-term care from COVID. Stay with 680 News for more on this developing story.
And happening now across the city, it continues to be a blustery evening. A special weather statement is out across the GTA, warning of strong winds. Toronto Hydro is reporting multiple outages. And a frost advisory is also out for Toronto and the GTA.
So when they warned us of 90-kilometer-an-hour winds, we had a gust of 119.
680's Mona Qureshi has more.
If you've been outside for even 30 seconds today, you know it's windy. And boy, is it ever. Our meteorologist Jason Fraser says we experienced sustained winds of 55 kilometers per hour even stronger at some point.
That could potentially lead to some tree branches flying around the GTA, and it could end up
counterpoint brought to you by a friend of YouTube. 4167
into some power lines and knocking off power.
Toronto Hydro says if you do come across any down power lines, to give them a call and stay at least 10 meters back because it is dangerous. Meantime, Anne-Marie Aikens with Go Transit says they have experienced some issues.
So we've had to cancel some of our trains.
So if you are traveling by transit, it's best to check ahead to see if there are any problems. I'm Owen Qureshi.
Here with All News Radio 680 News, it's 8:36. The Premier faced questions from reporters today for the first time in more than a week, addressing newly surfacing allegations about his finance minister. Here's 680's Richard Sumner.
The Premier emerged for the first time in a daze to face the cameras. He's been quarantining in his late mother's home in Etobicoke. What exactly has the Premier been up to?
Well, I've been here and I've been on the phone all day from 7 in the morning doing conferences, working.
Yeah, we got
the Premier was asked about the
Just
3 paid
pull
sick
up.
days his government is now offering. Just yesterday, Dr. Brown
By the proper authorities with the mandate to do that, not followed up on by politicians, but by a rigorous process. That is what my office ensured, that that complaint would direct it towards the appropriate authorities.
Bob,
Major League